You know that feeling when you're standing in a grocery store aisle just surrounded by this wall of brands and you think, wow, look at all these choices? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on that feeling. We're about to unmask the massive, concentrated, and honestly, mostly invisible industry that decides what actually ends up on our plates.
See, this is what's known as the illusion of choice. You see dozens of different brands on the shelf, Jimmy Dean, Hillshire Farm, Ballpark hot dogs, and you assume you've got all these options. But the reality? Nope. They all lead back to one single company, Tyson Foods. This is the hidden architecture of the food system we live in.
So, the big question is, who's really in control? Well, it turns out it's just a handful of colossal companies, some of them still owned by a single family, that completely dominate the entire global food supply.
For decades, this has been the name of the game. And, get this consolidation wasn't some accident. Oh no, it was the strategy all along. This relentless push for massive scale and efficiency has totally reshaped agriculture, squeezing out all the smaller players and creating the giants we have today.
Okay, let's start with a name you might not even know, Cargill. Their revenue in 2023 alone was $177 billion, making it the largest private company in America. I mean, to put that in perspective, we're talking about a scale that just dwarfs household names like Coca-Cola or Nike. And yet, most of us have never even heard of them.
Cargill's reach is, well, it's literally global. It touches almost everything we eat, from grain and cooking oil all the way to the feed our livestock eats. And here's the key. Because it's privately owned by a single family and doesn't really sell products under its own name, it operates almost completely in the shadows. We're talking about a company with over 160,000 employees worldwide and almost zero public scrutiny.
And Cargill isn't a lone wolf here, not at all. In the meat industry, it's one of the big four. Together with Tyson, the Brazilian-owned JBS, and Marfrig, these four companies have hoovered up so much power that they effectively control the entire market for beef, pork, and chicken, not just in the US, but beyond.
But here's the thing. That kind of consolidation, that obsession with efficiency, it doesn't come for free. It creates these enormous hidden costs you'll never see on a price tag, but that are paid by our planet, by workers, and ultimately by our own health.
At the very core of this problem is a deliberate lack of transparency. I mean, sure, these giant companies can trace their direct suppliers, but the real impact, the environmental and human damage, it comes from this huge, murky network of indirect suppliers. That's where all the visibility is lost and accountability becomes pretty much impossible.
So what is this opaque network actually hiding? Well, for starters, to grow commodities like soy for animal feed, you have to clear vast tracts of rainforest. Then, you've got industrial fertilizers that inevitably run off into our waterways, creating these toxic algal blooms. And finally, everything gets shipped around the globe on massive container ships, which, by themselves, account for a staggering 3% of all global greenhouse gas emissions. It's a whole chain of environmental destruction from the forest floor right to your front door.
Now, in response to public pressure, these companies make these big, public commitments. You'll see official-looking statements just like this one from Cargill, pledging to eliminate deforestation from their supply chains. It all sounds great, right? But how real are those promises?
This is where the disconnect just becomes crystal clear. There's a practice known as cattle laundering, and it creates this massive loophole. Here's how it works. Cattle are raised on a legally cleared land, and then, right before they're sold, they're simply moved to a clean, compliant farm. This little trick completely obscures their true origin, making it almost impossible to verify those corporate promises and allowing deforestation to just keep on happening behind this greenwashed curtain.
The environmental cost is staggering, for sure, but the human cost is just as severe. Farmers who raise animals for these giants get trapped in these brutal cycles of debt, forced to take out huge loans for company-mandated upgrades. Inside the processing plants, workers face grueling, dangerous conditions with line speeds that have literally doubled in the last 40 years. And for the rural towns these companies move into, local economies often just wither and die.
Just listen to how this former contract farmer put it. We own the farm, we don't own a chicken. Think about that for a second. He owned the land, the buildings, all the debt, but not a single bird. The company controlled everything, the chicks, the feed, the schedule, leaving the farmer with all of the risk and basically none of the power.
And finally, there's the direct cost to our own health. This system produces food that, in a lot of cases, is literally making us sick. The World Health Organization has classified processed meat as a carcinogen, right alongside asbestos and cigarettes. Chemical additives like nitrites are everywhere. And the constant, low-level use of antibiotics in factory farms is a huge driver of antibiotic resistance, a massive global health threat. It's a model that prioritizes shelf life and profit over our health, plain and simple.
So you gotta ask, how is a system with so many hidden costs even maintained? Well, it's not some secret conspiracy. It's actually something way more effective. A powerful, sophisticated, and extremely well-funded system of influence.
This system basically operates on three main fronts. First, you've got direct lobbying to shape laws and regulations. Second, strategic campaign contributions to make sure you have access to key politicians. And third, and this one's really sneaky, funding friendly scientific research that can be used to cast doubt on any inconvenient findings and delay action.
Let's just follow the money. In the 2022 election cycle alone, Cargill's Political Action Committee donated over $1.1 million. And look at the split. It's bipartisan. The goal isn't about ideology, it's about access. The money is strategically aimed at members of key committees, like the Agriculture Committee, who are the ones writing the rules for the entire industry.
And this quote just perfectly captures the messed up feedback loop at the heart of the system. First, the food we eat is contributing to chronic illness, and then our medical system profits from treating those same illnesses. It's this vicious cycle where the financial incentives are just perfectly aligned against our health.
Okay, as bleak as all that sounds, it's not the end of the story. The current system was designed by people, which means it can be redesigned. And, believe it or not, alternatives are already starting to take root.
The path forward really comes down to a choice between two completely different models. On one hand, you've got the industrial model we've been talking about, built on single crops, chemical inputs, and consolidation. And on the other, you have a regenerative model, which is built on the exact opposite: biodiversity, healthy soil, and working with nature, not against it.
And this is what that alternative can actually look like. Instead of a sterile, single-crop field, you see a thriving, diverse ecosystem. The goal here isn't just to extract the maximum yield in one season. It's about building a resilient system that actually leaves the soil healthier and more fertile year after year.
And that brings us to the most important question of all. The system that feeds us wasn't an accident. It was designed by a series of choices made over decades. Recognizing that, well, that's the first step. The real question is, what choices will we make to redesign it for the future?